1. Okay. We're live with Stephen Horde. Stephen's been on a few times. Stephen, you were at the Capitol on January 6th, and you have said, at least every time you've been on this show, and from what I media, you've said that you were participating in January 6th as an independent journalist. You followed the crowd in, documenting it, and you were charged. I will pull up the Justice Department's charging document, and I want to ask you about what you think their most, damning evidence was against you, so you can respond to it. But let's just go over the charges real fast that you put up here on Twitter. This is what the jury has returned a guilty verdict on for January 6 charges: entering or remaining in a restricted area, disorderly or disruptive conduct in a restricted area, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in the Capitol building. It's funny because I'm just thinking about how many times that's happened in the Capitol since January 6th with other people, and I'm not sure anything has happened to them. Definitely not to the degree that we're seeing you all charged. So let's start with those charges. Can you tell us what you could potentially face for all of that? It's like it basically is saying you were in the Capitol being disruptive. If that seems to be like the general premise here.
Yeah, so the maximum sentence would be a year in prison, and I think 3 years of probation.
What do you think about make myself back in here? What do you think about? Did I hear correctly that Owen Schroyer is in solitary for? I've heard.
I mean, I have also heard that. I cannot confirm whether that's correct or not, but I have heard that.
I have heard that too. So yeah, I don't know if it's true. But okay, what have they told you about what conditions you would be in if you end up going to prison for a year?
I don't know really. At this point, we don't have a sentencing recommendation yet for the government, so we don't really know what the government will be asking for. Yeah, in terms of the specific conditions of the prison you're put in, I think that varies between prison. I know some of the January 6th defendants have been sentenced where they've gone to like at something lesser, like more of a camp prison, the minimum security, or even like a halfway house. Whereas others, it seems like they've been put in some of the more, I don't know, rough or harsh prisons, or they've been put into solitary confinement.
Are you concerned at all about that? Are you just kind of taking one day at a time? I mean, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should be a little more concerned than I am.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm not really concerned at all.
Why do you think you should be?
Well, prison can be a dangerous place. I think it's sort of it's sort of weird how the American culture seems to look at prison. Because on the one hand, it's like, oh, we're putting people in prison for punishment. But then it's like, oh, like if you get beat up in prison, it's like, well, that's just what happens in prison. So, yeah, American prisons can be a dangerous place. I'm not too familiar with prisons, but yeah, I think it varies pretty widely on, what prison you're sent to, what conditions and what level of danger you will face there.
All right, before we go into, I'm going to pull this up real fast. Before we go into the charges here on the statement of facts from the DOJ, tell us about your defense. What did you tell people? What did you tell the jury?
Yeah, so the defense was basically is that I was not there to riot. I was not there to support Trump. I was not there to interrupt Congress. I was there, on Capitol grounds and in the Capitol building to document what I saw going on there.
All right. I am going to come back here to the document, and they even have you saying in the Facebook, they're coming through your Facebook, Horne makes numerous statements about being in the U.S. Capitol on January 2021. Some of these comments are as followed. I did not witness police doing any property damage, but I did see some in the crowd stop others in the crowd from doing property damage or exhorting others not to do so, even in Nancy Pelosi's office. I was on the front lines of the assault on the Capitol. I thought it was important to document the event. I followed the crowd in. I was not there when they broke through most of the barriers around the outside of Capitol. I was not looking for Pelosi's office. I guess it was just happened to be right there. Probably gets one of the best offices. Okay. I don't know
Yeah,
why
and I
that's.
think
Go ahead.
what I'll say about those is I think a lot of those are like responses to, basically comments that people had left on my video, but for some reason, like they only got what I said and not what I was responding to. So a lot of those are responding to specific claims like, oh, it was actually Antifa destroying stuff, or oh, it was actually the police, like destroying stuff and trying to frame Trump supporters. So yeah, some of those statements that they quote in there are like kind of, I mean, even just reading them, you can kind of tell like this is in response to something. But yeah, for some reason
Well,
they didn't record what it was in response to.
I don't know how that's evidence against you. It sounds like you're being consistent with the journalist defense. But anyway, they say that like this is the one from reading this, one of the like worst things that I see they had against you. Granted, I was not in court, I did not watch the trial, but that you were chanting USA. And that's
Yes,
one of the
that would
things
be
they say
correct.
made you part of the crowd. And here's a picture, and that here you are standing on a monument with a cell phone taking video, um, wearing a helmet and a black jacket. But yeah, it's like everything else from your perspective, it seems to be consistent with your defense, other than them saying you were chanting USA, which they're trying to imply, I guess, was that you were being active like the crowd was chanting USA versus being a journalist and shutting your mouth or something. I don't know. So let's go over that. What's the deal there?
Yeah, so I guess fundamentally what you have to understand is that my perspective going into documenting this riot was based on the riots over the summer of 2020, which were, Black Lives Matter, Antifa. I had started in the summer of 2020 reporting on some of these in my local area of Raleigh, North Carolina. And one of the first events I covered of this nature, I saw that the Black Lives Matter or Antifa rioters assault a local news crew. So it was, they had the cameraman, the anchor or the journalist anchor, whatever they're called, and then they had two security guards. So it was a team of four, and still they were like surrounded by the mob. They're being harassed. I saw people trying to throw punches, and so I was like, okay. I don't have a team of four. I'm just me. So the way I'm going to stay safe while still documenting events like this, which are of public interest, is to basically, I don't necessarily want to say go undercover, but basically go in there, covertly. So I'm recording video, but the people who want to harass and attack the media will not know that I am recording video. So you see me in that picture where I'm up on the monument and I'm holding a cell phone, but that cell phone was actually my backup. For the 2-hour contiguous video that I recorded, it was actually through a covert camera that I had in my helmet because I had,
Mm.
built a helmet so that I could record these type of demonstrations safely where I had seen, okay, they're not too fond of the media. So I'll record without people knowing that I'm recording. So basically, that was my strategy, was when there was an event where I saw that there was a high level of danger, I would go and blend in with the crowd. So that was basically my strategy to record and document while also keeping myself safe.
why why did you feel unsafe? Like why did you feel like having to be part of the crowd was going to keep you safe? What was the danger?
Yeah. So specifically on January 6th, um, yeah, so it was just my experience with, seeing, reporting from, the riots over the past year where journalists have been assaulted, my own personal experience seeing journalists being assaulted. And so, when I got near the Capitol and started recording, basically what even before I saw any of, the violence or people destroying things or moving things or anything that would suggest to me that a riot was going on, I I don't know, it always sounds sort of new agey when I say it, but I sensed the riot in the air. I have a sense for that. I don't know if it's, something subconscious with seeing how people are interacting with each other, but that's when I pulled out my helmet and started recording was, what I was sensing from the crowd was, the same atmosphere that I had sensed covering demonstrations in Raleigh, where it's Black Lives Matter and Antifa, where they would run around, knock over barriers, smash windows, throw paint on statues, attack TV crews, and whatnot. So basically, my perspective is like, okay, in this crowd, it feels to me the same way that I've, felt in these other crowds. So I'm going to act in the same way and keep them safe. So there wasn't necessarily anything I had seen on January 6th with the Trump supporters to make me think that they would be interested in assaulting media besides, the crimes that they are committing. It was just, I see rioting more as an aspect of human nature. And so whether it's Black Lives Matter, Antifa rioting, or Trump supporters rioting, I guess I expect them to kind of act in some of the same ways, which would be, hey, if they're doing something they could get in trouble for, they might not be too thrilled about someone videoing them doing that.
All right. I think it is confusing for a lot of us how you ended up with a guilty verdict. So let's talk about that in a second, Stephen. Ask you, what do you think it was that swayed the jury, or is there something else going on? You don't feel like you got a fair jury selection? Don't forget, everybody, though, if you want to keep interviews like Stephen coming on, go to AllisonWinePromo.com, support the sponsors. There's links in the description of the video and pinned comments, depending on where you're watching, where, we've got wine, coffee, cod liver fermented with butter oil blend for your teeth and other vitamin D needs, and all kinds of good stuff. So supporting the sponsors is a great way because I definitely don't make any money from YouTube, that's for sure. And also going to locals, AllisonMara.locals.com. But if you get yourself some wine, high altitude, we're talking about how everyone's an extremist now. We've got an extremist on here apparently, and me. So it's two of us here, I guess. We're both extremists, Stephen. Anyway, we do. I don't know if Stephen's a wine drinker. Actually, I haven't asked you that. Have you?
No, I'm
Are
not
you?
really a wine
Not really a
drinker.
wine drinker. Okay, he's
No.
not going to say that now because he has face sentencing, so you don't want to give him any dirt on you, right? Steven's clean as a whistle. But anyway, I still drink wine. But so as far as I know, you're not going to go to federal prison yet for drinking my wine. But it's a great way to be an extremist for now, and not have the FBI come after you. So AllisonWinePromo.com. And 50% off the wine, 50% off shipping. You get wine from the most remote regions of Argentina and extremely high altitude regions. That's why I call them extremist wines, because they're from over 6,000 feet, one from almost 9,000 feet, small family farms, handpicked grapes, 200-year-old vineyard. Just great wine and a great way to support my work. So thanks to Bonner Wine for that. There's also coffee for your hangover, twinenginecoffee.com/Allison. So don't forget USDA certified organic roast. We've got light roast and dark roast. We've got espresso. And there's tea. If you're a tea drinker, again, it's organic and it's also high altitude as well. Great company and also very free speech oriented if you're a coffee drinker. And then finally, like I said, I've been taking Green Pasture cod liver butter oil blend for many, many years. I did a video about how I went to the dentist after 3 years and I still had no cavities. And they said my gums look awesome. They didn't really care to find out why. I guess that's pretty typical for dentists now. But anyway, you can use the promo code Allison10 if you just go to greenpasture.org, or there's an affiliate link in the pinned comment in the description. So you can use the affiliate link or just go to greenpasture.org and use Allison10 as your coupon code or your promo code. So thanks there. Okay, so Stephen, let's get back to what we were talking about. I guess I'm confused why are you guilty? What do you think swayed the jury? What happened?
Yeah, so I think, that you might think the government's strongest piece of evidence was, me chanting USA, but I think their strongest piece of evidence was just the fact that I was there. And so, the jury, I won't say too much about the jury out of respect, but what I will say is that I believe they were representative of the DC population. And so if you look at the history DC juries have had, especially with these January 6th cases, that going in there, I knew that there was a high likelihood that I would be convicted. And, that's exactly what happened.
Sorry, muted myself so you weren't going to hear kids screaming. Just because you were there, you thought there was a high probability you were going to get convicted. So there's no way to just be there on January 6th. I mean, there were a lot of people who were there that didn't get charged, and I don't think any of us have really gotten quite a clear answer exactly as to how people were picked out of the crowd. Um, because there were a lot of people there, and not everybody is facing charges. I don't really. Do you have any response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically that your best bet of getting, not convicted of a January 6th sentence is to get not prosecuted at all. Once you've been prosecuted, if you make it to the jury, you have an extremely low chance of getting let off. I'm not sure anyone has been fully acquitted by a jury at this point. I believe 2 defendants have been acquitted at bench trials where a judge was presiding. I know, some January 6th defendants have been partially acquitted where, the jury found them guilty on some charges and not guilty on other charges. But yeah, generally, your best bet is to not be charged at all. And like you said, there were many journalists in the crowd. Some of those journalists were journalists who were members of one of the congressional press galleries, whether, the House or Senate, radio, TV, print, whatever. But many of those journalists, did not have any sort of credential. They entered the Capitol with the crowd just like I did. They entered through, maybe even the same door that I did, maybe even within a couple minutes of me. And
Mhm.
for whatever reason, uh, I have been charged and they have not been charged.
Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised that with the power connections of like the corporate press, for instance, that they end up having people who can get them off the hook. But yeah, it is also weird. Like there would be other independent journalists that wouldn't have been charged, and you were. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting what you say though that like once you've been prosecuted or once there are charges, like it's over. They might as well just they might as well just skip the whole trial period, and you'd already be out of prison by now or something if they're if it's going to be like that. And I guess I'm curious, why do you think that is? Is it just because people have been so manipulated about the narrative around January 6th that it's just impossible to get a jury that's a fair jury and open-minded about it?
Um, it's hard to say. It could be a combination of all those factors, just how our justice system is set up. It is it's sort of interesting because there's a balance there's some elements like self protections against self-incrimination, protections against unlawful search and seizure, having trouble saying that today. But in general, that the justice system is set up so that they can send criminals to prison. And so what we have is that the plea system, where the vast majority of cases are resolved, not with a trial, but with a plea deal where they say, okay, we're charging you with this big crime, but we'll let you plead to this little crime. And then, you won't face the same level of potential consequences. And so the system is kind of set up to strongly pressure you towards taking that outcome because the plea deal that they offered me early in 2021 was, you plead guilty to parading, demonstrating, or picketing in the Capitol building, and we will recommend that the judge only gives you probation. So no jail time at all, just probation. But, now that I've gone to trial, they could potentially argue for me to be put in prison for up to a year. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, that a lot of elements of the justice system are kind of geared to make that happen. So once you go to trial, like even some of the statements that you saw there in the charging document, where I was contemporaneously, on January 7th or January 8th, making statements saying, hey, this is why I was there. to be a journalist, those statements were not admissible as court because, whatever evidentiary rule, hearsay or whatever, since they're my own words, I can't, bring them in as evidence.
Huh.
So, I mean, I you can talk about the DC juries and whatnot. I probably would have had a better chance with, a Raleigh jury than a DC jury. But I won't say too much negative about the jury, just for my own safety.
Okay, we're going to take some questions at Locals. Don't forget alsamar.locals.com. It's $5 a month, and you get an exclusive show every week. Plus, you get to put questions in it ahead of time for every interview, like Steven's, and ask whatever you want. If you guys terrible questions, great. Sign up and support the show, and then you get to ask them yourself. Steven, before we talk to you about audience questions, where can people go to support you or follow you? Other than throw up your Twitter here, but is there anywhere else they should go?
Yeah, you can go there. I am on Locals, stephenhorn.locals.com. I also have, I set up a fundraiser for legal costs. You can look that up on Give, Send, Go. Just look up Stephen Horn, January 6th, if you'd like to support me in that way. And yeah, Twitter is one of my main platforms for posting some of the journalism that I do, specifically related to January 6th. Oh, and I should mention I released a documentary on January 6th recently. You can find that at j6documentary.com. It's called 79 Minutes to Breach the Capitol. And it just sort of lays out the timeline of, how the Capitol was breached, how the police sort of failed in their efforts to defend the Capitol, and some sort of a tactical analysis there. So you can find that at j6documentary.com.
Okay. All right. Let's go over here. I think I'm probably, if you're watching on YouTube, I think this is going to be end of it. So go over to Rumble, Rockfin, or Locals. We're going to finish up over there. It's great to see you guys on YouTube. Have a great weekend.